I wanted to ask you about some of these awards, specifically to circle back to something you'd said before. Well, also because it's fun to talk about awards. It's awesome. But you were talking about you had a prequel that you weren't sure would go anywhere because of where publishing is. And I know, obviously, anytime I say, what are your problems with publishing? It's like saying, would you like to commit career suicide? Go ahead. So that's not what we're going to do. But it does shock me sometimes when I talk to authors that I consider to be a big deal, that if anybody should be able to walk into the publisher's office and say, here, I've written this, publish it. But ma'am, no, don't but ma'am me. I have things to write. I'll be in my shed. You get on it. And I'm always shocked to hear that that's not the case. Certainly you have to have some kind of cachet. There has to be some things you could get done that other writers couldn't get done at this point, right?
Absolutely, there are. I have a really good agent, and I think she could probably get anything I wrote in front of the people that I would like to see it. I really do. It's like if I'm working on a middle grade now. I'm very happy with my middle grade editor, Kat. I am not shopping around, but I love her very much. But there are many middle grade editors that I admire. And if I wanted them to read this book, to read a manuscript and consider it, I could get that done. And that is not a privilege that you have as a beginning writer. Like just getting it read, just getting it out of the slush pile is just a huge step. It's a huge deal. So, I mean, yeah, there's stuff I can get done, but not everything. I mean, there will be, I get books turned down, not by all editors, but by some editors. I've never had a book that I couldn't publish. But yeah, I mean, I've pitched my dream books at dream editors and gotten no's, and and then they find some home somewhere else. And so far it's always worked out, but it's not a smooth road. I always try to tell people who aren't in publishing that it's kind of like selling a house. It's, you live in it, you work in it for a really long time, and then you make this big, objective and usually a financially big deal kind of transaction about it. So it's like that, except with more wild cards and uncertainty and opportunity for personal judgment. So if you think selling a house is fun, you will probably like publishing a novel. If you don't, then, buckle up, because it's a lot like that. But
I assume part of that metaphor is once you've sold the house, you can't complain when the new owners put something up on the lawn you don't like, or do some reconstruction.
Yeah. Well, once you've written a novel, it really belongs to its readers in any case. But yeah, I will occasionally complain to other author friends. It's like, oh, the cover, oh, the tagline, oh, why? But, they know what they're doing. I don't know how to market a book. So I let the people who market books. I mean, hats off to indie writers, to self-published writers who are doing it all for themselves. I've got like 9 people working on my book, at least, just to get it out into the world. And, and it still feels sometimes like it's just going to sink below the ocean of publishing, like a delicate little paper lantern, Like, oh, goodbye, beautiful book. So hats off to the people who can do it, but I'm not one of them. I don't know how to do it. So I try not to second guess those guys too much.
I just had this fantasy, and I've talked to enough authors now to realize that nobody has this fantasy. Probably Stephen King, J.K. Rowling don't have this fantasy. But I like to imagine that there could come a point in an author's career where an editor says, I think you should make this change. And then you sit across from them and you put your awards on the table and say, well, my little friends here say no. My little friends say we're doing it my way. And then that's the end of the discussion.
No, but I mean, you should be able to turn down any change you want from your editor. I mean, some of them are going to be deal breakers. Some of them are going to be like, well, then I guess we can't work together on this book. But ultimately, it has to be your book. If someone suggests a change to it that... Remember I was talking about the Scorpion rules? Is the story of this girl who's willing to go along with the system and this boy who's totally not? One of the earliest pieces of feedback I got from it was, switch it. tell it from the boy's point of view. You know, he's a fish out of water. It'll make it a lot easier to understand the system. It's much more typical of a Divergent Hunger Games, Pretties kind of style plot, someone thrown in over their heads. You know, it'll just make the book a lot more commercial. And I'm like, yes, you're right. It would make the book a lot more commercial, but I'm not interested in that. You know, so you turn that piece of advice down. And that is a decision that cost me a professional relationship in a way. But it's, it was the right decision for the book. And it's not a book that landed badly. That's a book with Simon & Schuster. So I'm not sad about the decision. But I also see where, the people giving me the advice are coming from. It really would have been a much more commercial, much more typical book if I'd flipped the whole thing, if I'd made it, from the boy's point of view, if the girl had fallen in love with the boy instead of her female best friend. This is a piece of advice that I also got is, why can't they just be best friends? Do they have to be gay? This is in 2010 or so. So
that's not
do they have to be gay was still an acceptable question.
If you told me 1956, I'd say, I guess. But that's too recent.
No, but you don't know how fast it's changed. I was told that it was, even in the 2 years it took me to finish it and get it to market, it went from being, oh, that's really going to limit the audience. Are you sure? To, no, I think we can use this as a hook. Just, there was almost nothing in 2010 that was, queer, young adult, and fantasy. The queer stuff was all still problem novels, and God bless her, Madeline Lowe's Ash. The Cinderella story. There was really very, very little. This is one of the first, and they packaged it. I'm going to reach behind me and grab it. Hang on.
Oh, sure.
Treat your readers to a view of my bookshelves.
I don't see the awards back there. Where are they?
Nope. Well, they're on the shiny, shiny books. Can you tell this is about lesbians on their goat farm?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I figured out.
That's exactly what So, the packaging is the packaging does not, this is the science fiction, they repackaged it for the paperback. So now it looks much more like science fiction and much less like dystopian, which I was very grateful for. I love both covers. I think both covers are great, but, it certainly has got a science fiction cover, not a story. You can't even tell that it's about, that it has a female lead. So it's very sub rosa in a way.
Is that something where you can weigh in, where you have this ideal cover? Me, award-winning Erin Bow.
I also don't know how to package books, so I try not to second guess that. Okay, here's the real deal. You get a certain amount of author tantrums you can pitch. It's definitely not more than one a book. So you can pitch a tantrum about your proposed cover if you really hate it, but you need to save it in case you need the tantrum later. So if it's reasonably close to what you wanted, then you should just go with it. No, I don't get a lot of input on covers. This one did have a proposed cover that I was like, ooh, I don't think so. And they changed it. But you don't get a lot of them. So I've been lucky in covers, actually, by and large. I have a couple of foreign editions where I'm like, I don't know what book that is.
Did I write that one?
It's my name on the cover, but it doesn't look like anything that I wrote. But, I'm lucky to have foreign editions at all, so I just kind of move on with that and make my peace.